All right, let's get into it. Today, we're looking at a huge showdown in the world of moral philosophy. In one corner, you've got the super strict, rule-based ethics of Immanuel Kant. And in the other corner, the flexible, what's the best outcome world of utilitarianism. These are two seriously powerful and totally competing ideas about what makes something right or wrong.
And hey, a special shout out to everyone in Miss Tanya Rodriguez's philosophy class at UAM College. This one is for you. We're going to break these theories down so you have a powerful toolkit ready for all your class discussions.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a classic. You've probably heard of it, the trolley problem. So picture this. A train is out of control, barreling towards 5 people tied to the tracks. You're standing next to a lever. If you pull it, you can switch the train to another track, but there's one person tied up on that track. So do nothing, 5 people die, pull the lever, 1 person dies. What do you do? I mean, there's no easy answer here, right? But your gut reaction probably says a lot about how you think ethically.
So first up, let's talk about the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant. The easiest way to think about his whole system is like a universal rule book. For Kant, morality isn't about your feelings, and it's definitely not about the outcome. Nope. It's about pure reason and following your unshakable duties.
Kant's philosophy is basically the textbook definition of deontology. And the core idea is pretty simple, but it's also kind of radical. It says that the morality of what you do is in the act itself, not in what happens because of it. It asks a simple question. Did you follow the moral rule? Did you do your duty? For someone who follows Kant, that is the only thing that matters. The consequences, whether they're good or bad, are totally irrelevant to whether your choice was moral.
So you're probably asking, how do we even find these universal rules? Well, Kant gives us this really powerful tool called the categorical imperative. I know, it sounds super intimidating, but we can break it down into 2 key tests. First, universalizability. Before you do something, you have to ask yourself, what if every single person on the planet did this in my situation? If that creates a world that just doesn't work or a world nobody would want, then the act is immoral. Simple as that. Second, humanity as an end. And this one is so important. You can never, ever treat another person merely as a means to an end, like a tool you use to get what you want. Every single person has their own worth, their own dignity.
And here it is, straight from the man himself. This quote perfectly explains that first test. A maxim is really just the principle or the rule behind your action. So could you honestly wish for the rule you're about to follow to become a law for all of humanity forever? If the answer is no, then you have a duty not to do it.
Now, this brings us to a really critical piece of Kant's whole puzzle, the act-omission distinction. For Kant, there is a huge moral difference between actively doing something wrong and just failing to stop something bad from happening. For instance, actively pushing someone into the water is murder. But if you see someone drowning and you choose not to help, while that's tragic, it's not the same moral wrong. In his view, you're not morally responsible for what you just let happen.
Okay, let's totally switch gears now and look at a philosophy that pretty much challenges everything we just talked about. Welcome to the world of utilitarianism, which was championed by philosophers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. If Kant gave us a strict rule book, you can think of the utilitarians as giving us a kind of happiness calculator.
Utilitarianism is the most famous type of consequentialism, and it is the complete opposite of Kant's deontology. Here, all that stuff about intentions and duties and rules, it all takes a back seat. The only thing that decides if an act is moral is its outcome. Did your action lead to a better world overall? For a consequentialist, that's it. That's the whole game.
At the very heart of utilitarianism is this really powerful and, pretty intuitive idea, the principle of utility. This principle just states that the right thing to do is whatever maximizes pleasure and minimizes pain. What produces the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. It's a very simple, very pragmatic formula. And right here is a major clash with Kant. For utilitarian, there is absolutely no act-omission distinction. None. Deciding not to do something is still a decision. It's an action and it has consequences. If you could stop a lot of pain by doing something but you choose not to, well then you are morally on the hook for the bad outcome you allowed to happen. Okay, so the stage is set. We've got Kant's rulebook on one side and utilitarianism's calculator on the other. It's time to go back to that runaway train and see how each of these philosophies holds up under pressure. It's time for a showdown at the tracks.
So let's start with Kant. His choice? Do not pull the lever. A strict Kantian would say that pulling that lever is an act of killing. You would be intentionally using that one person as a means to save the other 5. And that's a direct violation of the categorical imperative.
You have an absolute duty not to kill, so you cannot act. Okay, now for the utilitarian. Their choice? Pull the lever. For them, the math is just crystal clear. 5 deaths cause way more suffering than 1 death. Pulling the lever creates the greatest good for the greatest number. From this point of view, not pulling the lever is a choice that directly leads to 4 extra deaths, which makes it the wrong immoral option.
So which answer is the right one? Well, you know the goal here isn't to crown a winner. It's to give you a philosophical toolkit. These are 2 completely different ways of looking at the world, 2 lenses you can use to analyze and argue about pretty much any moral problem you'll ever face.
This table really breaks down the main conflict, right? Kantian ethics is all about your intention and following these absolute universal rules, and that gives really strong protection for individuals. Utilitarianism, on the other hand, only cares about the results, and it uses flexible principles to get the most happiness for the group. One is rigid and principled, the other is flexible and pragmatic.
So we'll end with a question for you, especially for everyone listening in from Ms. Rodriguez's class. Now that you have these tools in your toolkit, which framework do you think is more convincing? When we're facing all the crazy, complex ethical issues in our world today, should we rely on the unwavering duties of Kant, or should we go with the practical calculations of utilitarianism? There's definitely no easy answer, and honestly, that's what makes philosophy so cool. Thanks for tuning in.